In previous segments, we talked about how our attention to little, or fictional monsters, can take our attention away from the really big threats, and how our cultural history of putting makeup on our monsters impedes our ability to recognize them for the threats they indeed are. We talked about how moneyed interests are working to compromise the moral character of society, to move society backwards morally. In this segment, we will discuss how our culture conditions us to accept and embrace monsters.
Aren't you just the cutest little terror?
See them as cute or special, and even grant them special privileges. Or conditions us to see them as socially acceptable and admirable. We saw this with Jeffrey Epstein, a monster that had a large social circle. We saw this with Bernie Madoff, who billed investors of billions. And there are certain American cultural myths that entice us into accepting monstrous and exploitive individuals, making empty promises that almost never pan out for us as promised, and cause us to drop our guard so that we become prey to such predators, or even finding ourselves supporting them, stepping into myths and psychological traps that God never intended for us. In this segment, we will discuss some specific cultural myths that cause us to embrace these monsters. The rugged individual myth, also known as the self-made man, the rogue, or the cowboy. The rugged individual is someone who needs nothing and no one to make it in this world. He can make it on his own. If you mess with him, he'll drop you in a moment flat. In traditional westerns from years ago, this noble figure might save the town or save a damsel in distress with his heroism. But too often the modern version of this figure tends to be a bit less noble, out for himself or his rich clients alone. People are attracted to the rugged individual for their confidence, swagger, and natural leadership ability. He makes people want to hitch a ride with him to the top. This while this guy might share the wealth with a few close buddies, he rarely has a sense of the larger community supporting him, and is just as likely to take the lion's share of the profits for himself, leaving crumbs and possibly bitter experiences for the majority of people who supported his rise. Because strong leadership talents can turn destruction when they are not combined with good character and a sense of fairness and empathy. And his negative examples contribute to the overall decline of morality within the national consciousness, as was the case with both Jeffrey Epstein and Bernie Madoff.
Charge them that are rich in this world, that they be not high-minded, nor trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God, who giveth us richly all things to enjoy.
Winners and losers, loser lawyer, or winner take all, myth. A cousin to the rugged individual myth, the winners and losers myth is a main feature of the Trump administrations. In this myth, whole world is a zero-sum game divided up into winners and losers, and the rich and powerful always win. Ethics have no meaning in this world, since everything is decided by who has the power and who does not. Legality have no meaning, since everything is decided by who has access to power and who does not. Thus, this system is distinguished from the rugged individual myth, in that rugged individuals are generally competent in their fields, whereas incompetence and buffoonery is a distinguishing feature of the winners and losers system, since there is no system of accountability other than raw power. The system is inherently unstable, since the number of losers always outnumbers the winners, and the winners have to keep convincing the losers that the system somehow works in their interest, or the spell could be broken. And there are plenty of skeletons in those closets. But the scapegoating of women, minorities, and immigrants is usually enough to draw attention away from them. The winners and losers system is inherently immoral. It is designed and run by selfish and greedy people who are scam artists, who use tricks and diversions to enrich themselves at the expense of others. But many people fall for them because of their glitz and glamorous lifestyles, or because they desire to eat the crumbs that fall from their master's tables.
Do not eat the bread of a selfish person, or desire his delicacies, for as he thinks within himself, so he is. He says to you, "Eat and drink," but his heart is not with you. You will vomit up the morsel you have eaten and waste your compliments.
The prosperity gospel myth puts a religious spin on the traditional pyramid scam, where all the money flows to the top and stays there. It is a close cousin of the winners and losers myth, since it always results in some people winning and other people losing. It has nothing to do with the actual Christian gospel itself, of course, since Jesus vilified the rich and comforted the poor. In the world of the prosperity gospel, the poor are vilified instead for not having enough faith to get rich, and encouraged to give to rich pastors to make them richer. Like winners and losers, this philosophy has no real ethical core, since everything is based upon abstract ideas about faith, but only the kind that brings money and makes you rich. Some of these preachers cut God out of the equation altogether and tell their followers that they are little gods and that Jesus was simply a way shower, which is borderline blasphemous since it denies the sovereignty of God. Prosperity pastors invariably have large estates, which they have built on the tithes and offerings of their poor and middle-class congregations. Thus, they use religion to enrich themselves while ignoring the demands of the cross for a sacrificial, unselfish life. This movement appeals to people who have a desire to get rich themselves, not realizing that they are at the bottom rung of a spiritual pyramid scheme.
And Jesus went into the temple of God and cast out all those who sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves, and said unto them, "It is written, My house shall be called the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves."
A rather sick offshoot of the evangelical and prosperity gospel movements is the anti-empathy movement, saying that having compassionate and tenderness for some people is evil and might be a sin, an idea that is totally contrary to the cross of Jesus Christ, but is being openly debated on Christian media and the podcast circuit. To counter the natural God-given empathy that people have for others who are caught in difficult circumstances, especially brown-skinned immigrants who have been scapegoated for political purposes, and to sell books and make a name for themselves, especially on the Christian nationalist circuit. This movement appeals to be people who are naturally selfish, have hate in their hearts for some groups of people, or who are looking for an excuse to cling to old grudges.
This know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection.
It is not God's will that we would fall for the schemes of frauds and pitchmen. Monstrous individuals who do not have our interests at heart, stepping into traps that God never intended for us, or that we would become so desensitized to the needs of others that would be unable to have empathy for them. But God has given each one of us a conscience, and if we follow His word and are led by His Spirit, we do not need to fall into the snares of the devil.
Flee the evil desires of youth and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart. Don't have anything to do with foolish and stupid arguments, because you know they produce quarrels. And the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but must be kind to everyone, able to teach, not resentful.
In this segment, we discussed how our culture conditions us to accept and embrace monsters, see them as cute or special, and even grant them special privileges, and conditions us to see them as socially acceptable and admirable. In the next segment, we will look at how our culture provides fertile ground for monsters to develop.